There's a scene in both the 2016 movie Fences and the 2017 movie Lady Bird where both of the child characters ask their parents a version of the question, "Why don't you like me?" In Lady Bird, the titular character portrayed by Saoirse Ronan says to her mom,
"I wish that you liked me."
in which her mother, Marion, portrayed by Laurie Metcalf, responds,
"Of course I love you."
Unsatisfied, Lady Bird asks her mom again, "But do you like me?" Marion says, "I want you to be the best version of you that you can be," and Lady Bird says,
"What if this is the best version?"
leaving her mom Marion speechless. In Fences, Giovanna Depo plays Corey, the 18-year-old son of Troy, portrayed by Denzel Washington, and asks his dad,
"How come you ain't never liked me?"
in which Troy responds,
"Like you? Who the hell said I got to like you? You eat every day.
Yes, sir.
Got a roof over your head.
Yes, sir.
Got clothes on your back.
Yes, sir.
Why you think that is?"
"'Cause of you."
Hell, I know it's because of me. But why do you think that is?
"'Cause you like me."
Like you. I go out of here every morning. I bust my butt putting up with them crackers every day because I like you. You're about the biggest fool I ever saw. It's my job. It's my responsibility. A man is supposed to take care of his family. You live in my house, fill your belly with my food, put your behind on my bed because you're my son. Not because I like you, because it's my duty to take care of you. I owe a responsibility to you. Now let's get this straight right here and now before I go along any further. I ain't got to like you. Mr. Rand don't give me my money come payday because he like me. He give it to me because he owe me. Now, don't you go through life worrying about whether somebody like you or not. You best be making sure they're doing right by you.
You understand what I'm saying, boy?
"Yes, sir."
Then you get the hell out of my face and go down under A&P.
He takes ownership as a parent and says, "You're my responsibility. I bust my ass because it's my job, and I don't like it, and most of the time, if not all the time, I don't really like you, but I'm going to do right by you. And I want you to respect yourself enough to not worry if people like you, but that they do right by you." And though on the surface the two movies do seem very different, as Fences is about a poor black family living in Pittsburgh in 1957, and Lady Bird is about a poor white family in 2002, they both are trying to do the same thing, which is explain why parent-child relationships are so messy. When Marion and Troy are faced with the question of do they like their children, they give very different answers. Marion has no idea what to say, probably because she never really thought about it before, and honestly, deep down inside, doesn't like this version of her child, and she's not okay with that feeling, even though it is completely natural to sometimes dislike your own child. Troy, of course, gives his iconic answer, and I do really like what he has to say here, even though we later discover that Troy is a horrible parent. He doesn't live by his own words. His son, in turn, fears him. He impedes his son's dreams, but we're going to get into that later. So in this video, I want to explore the themes that Lady Bird and Fences present. The main one obviously being complicated relationships between children and their parents, and trying to answer the question of why parent and child relationships become strained, and how parents can do better, and in Troy's words, right by their children. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Cheyenne, and I'm an Asian American adoptee and expat living in Brazil. I post new videos about pop culture, movies, TV shows, and looking at their themes and dissecting them. So if you're into that, please subscribe and ring the bell to be notified every time I post a new video. And if you end up liking this video, please give it a like and leave a comment. Do both so this video gets boosted and you help me with the algorithm. So thank you so much, and let's get started. Before we get really deep into it, however, let me first briefly explain the plot of each movie and the themes they individually present before I put them in conversation with one another. So part 1, Fences. Fences is a movie based on August Wilson's Pulitzer Prize-winning 1985 play of the same name. It was Denzel Washington's passion project, and he actually decided to use the screenplay Wilson wrote before his passing. The movie centers around Troy Maxson, a once legendary baseball player for the Negro Leagues, who is now a garbage truck driver, and his complicated relationship with his family, particularly with his son Corey, his wife Rose Lee, portrayed by Viola Davis, and his own father. At the outset of the film, Troy seems to be a decent guy. He has his best friend, who he's known for years. He has a wife who he seemingly loves. And though he's not the best parent in the world, he seems to be trying his best. However, as the film progresses, we see Troy's facade fade away as he lashes out and impedes Corey from meeting a football recruiter from the University of South Carolina, threatens to kick him out of the house, and later reveals to Rose that he cheated on her, and now his mistress is having his baby. Rose then gives a very emotional and truly moving speech about how she gave up everything for him, because that's what a wife is supposed to do, and maybe she wasn't happy about it, but she thought they could struggle together, and she was willing to do that.
You're always talking about what you give and what you don't have to give. But you take too, Troy. You take and don't even know nobody's giving.
She then talks about how she feels betrayed, how instead of Troy coming to her, he escaped into another woman's arms, and she asks the very real question, what about me, Troy? What about me? Troy does admit to her that he was trying to take the easy way out, stealing second base, if you will, and Rose is not here for it, thank God. Though she still does agree, of course, to raise the baby after Alberta, Troy's mistress, dies in labor.
You can't visit the sins of the father upon the child.
As Rose puts it.
But you're a womanless man.
However, this is the last straw for Corey, who tries to physically stand up for Troy, and not just because he cheated on his mom, but because he has all this pent-up anger at his father for impeding his football scholarship, for making him feel as though he has to walk on eggshells around him, and never knowing when Troy is going to lash out or how he will react to things. Corey has feared his dad for so long, and also has been trying to appease him for so long, holding down a job and being good in school, but none of it is ever enough and he's sick of it, especially after seeing what a hypocrite Troy really is, and how kind of mentally unstable he is. So, with all this pent-up anger, Corey releases it the only way men in society are taught to release anger, through physical violence. However, Troy attacks him in a drunken rage, almost killing his own son, and then finally kicks him out of the house for good. Corey later joins the Marines, and we only see him again when it's time for Troy's funeral, in which he says to his mother he doesn't want to go. Rose then slaps Corey and says that she's made her peace with him, saying that, they didn't get along very well, but she made those choices and she needs to live with them. Corey then explains to his mother how he felt as though his dad's presence in the house was like a shadow, always following you around, trying to crawl into you, trying to get into your skin.
The whole time I was growing up living in his house, Papa was like a shadow that followed you everywhere. It weighed on you and it sunk into your flesh. It would wrap around you and lay there until you couldn't tell which one was you anymore. That shadow just digging into your flesh. Trying to crawl in, trying to live through you.
And he says and explains that he doesn't want to go to the funeral because he finally wants to stand up to his father, and this is really his last chance to do that.
I got to say no to him. One time in my life, I got to say no.
I don't gotta listen to that.
Rose responds with,
Now, I don't know if he was right or wrong, but I do know he meant to do more good than he meant to do harm.
which is fine. Rose can say her piece and try to convince Corey all she wants, but in the end, it really isn't her decision to make. But after meeting Raynell, Corey's half-sister and the daughter of Alberta, who Rose has been raising, Corey breaks down and cries, decides to attend his father's funeral, and that's kind of the end of the movie. You'll see this pattern a lot in these kind of child and parent movies of the child needing to forgive the parent at the end, which is honestly very annoying because it's usually not the child that, should feel guilty or should, learn to let things go. It's usually the parent that needs to do that. But I personally like to believe that Corey isn't crying because he's suddenly forgiving his dad, but rather because someone who was close to him for a big part of his life is now gone. And it's fine that Corey can feel resentful for his parent and even hate him, but also still be sad that he's gone. It's not either or, and that's what I really like about Fences. Now, one thing in the movie that I didn't really bring up, which is a big part of the movie, is Troy's relationship with his own father.
Daddy ain't had no walking blues, what you know about? He stayed right there with his family, but he was just as evil as he could be.
In one scene, Troy explains his backstory, his relationship with his father, and how his father was the reason why he had to leave home at 14 and live on the streets. Troy explains how his dad only saw him as another pair of hands to help out with the farm, and also as someone to beat on whenever he saw fit. He then adds, however, that he tried to beat up on his own dad for trying to rape his 13-year-old girlfriend, but of course, as a child himself, his dad overpowered him, and after that he ran away and never saw his father again. Troy is, I think, somewhat aware that he's doing the same thing to his own kid, making him afraid of him, pushing him away, beating on him, but I also think that he thinks that just because he's not a sexual predator or not as abusive as his own dad, that he's doing a good job as a parent. A lot of parents set a very low bar for themselves in order to not be bad parents, or at least see themselves as bad parents, because since the bar is so low, how can they really fail? But kids need more than the bare minimum, which is why Corey gets so angry. More importantly, the real function of Troy's backstory is to not only make us understand him more as an adult and realize where all this anger and abuse might have stemmed from, but also to illustrate intergenerational trauma. When Corey talks about how he felt as though his father's presence was like a shadow trying to crawl into you, trying to get into your bones or your soul, he's really talking about the intergenerational trauma, the trauma that Troy faced as a child trying to enter him, but he's not going to let it. Corey's not going to let the trauma he faced as a child or the trauma that his dad faced as a child, impact his life. He's going to break the cycle of abuse. He's not going to let it manifest in him and sit in there and make him lash out at people or angry. He's going to, like I said, break the cycle of abuse because Corey is self-reflective, something that his dad isn't. He's conscious of the world around him. He knows that his dad doesn't want him playing football because he doesn't want his son to outdo him. And though Troy may impede his scholarship because he's trying to protect him, that's not his choice to make. Corey realizes what's going on at home at a very young age, which is why he asks the "do you like me" question. He can sense that his dad needs some type of help, and he tries to make him happy and proud, but can't because Troy needs therapy, and a child's purpose is not to fill their parents' emotional gaps. Corey's just trying to do what most kids of struggling parents do, trying to go out into the world, leave their small town, and make a name for themselves. They try to leave the lower class, and in the end, Corey does that, maybe in spite of his father, and also having this need to not end up like him. And though Rose says that Troy will always be a part of Corey, and that Corey is very much like Troy, he really isn't, and that's okay. Kids don't always need to end up like their parents, especially if they were toxic. And kids not trying to end up like their parents or trying to diverge from their parents' paths and having resentment towards them isn't because they actually secretly love them or that all this hate is actually a manifestation of love, because that's really not how love should work. Rather, love and hate can exist at the same time, and that's how Corey feels, and that's valid. As Odie Henderson put it in his review for RogerEbert.com, Fences is a film about how our environment shapes us, and how no matter how noble their intentions, our parents can't help but mess up in some fashion, just as their parents had done for them. This is our legacy as humans. Either we indoctrinate ourselves against which we saw was wrong with our parents, or we catch their disease and pass it on. So, part 2, Lady Bird. Similar to Fences, Lady Bird is a movie about a child and parent who don't get along, except they're white, living in 2002, and it's about a daughter and her mother, rather than a father and son duo. Lady Bird, also known as Christine to her parents, wants to go to a college on the East Coast. However, her mom doesn't want her to because of money, and also because she doesn't think Lady Bird is good enough to get in. So Lady Bird, offended at this, and also know that bringing it up again will just lead to another fight, she applies to East Coast schools behind her mother's back. We see Lady Bird grow and mature throughout her senior year of high school. She loses her virginity, falls in and out of love, and reconciles with her best friend, who she abandoned for almost an entire semester when trying to become popular. She also fights with her mom a lot.
Mom! You can't even pass your driver's test.
Because you wouldn't let me practice.
This isn't right. We can't treat our clothes like this. I don't know what your wealthy friends do.
Why do you care what I do to my clothes?
If you need to use 2 towels, you just have to say, because this affects my whole day, because I have to do laundry before work.
The eggs are not done.
Fine, make your own fucking eggs.
I wanted to. You won't let me.
Do you have any idea what it costs to raise you and how much you're just throwing away every day?
Marion is always telling Lady Bird about how they're poor, how they can't afford things, but when Lady Bird tells her friends that they're poor and they can't do this or that, her Marion suddenly becomes offended.
Wrong side of the tracks.
I didn't mean it that way. It was a joke.
Yeah, it's just a joke.
Or when Lady Bird doesn't clean up her clothes this instant, her mom goes on this whole rant about how Lady Bird is disrespectful and only cares about herself. Lady Bird and Marion's relationship fluctuates throughout the film. Sometimes they're at each other's throats, other times they are having a great day together. And they never reconcile after the fighting parts. Life just goes on. It's realistic, and you can see the tension the two have on screen. Even when they're just standing next to one another, you can feel the resentment closing in on around you as you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. Later it's revealed that Lady Bird's father, who is a lot more respectful of her, knocks on the door before entering her room.
How'd you know it was me?
Mom doesn't knock.
Has depression. Lady Bird finds this out, and it's a real loss of innocence moment, and I really appreciate this part being in the film because I don't think we talk enough about how parents have mental illnesses and how that affects their children. And of course, Marion, being the controlling person that she is, uses her husband's depression in order to make Lady Bird feel guilty about wanting to go to the East Coast.
No, Larry, you can't just be the nice guy. She has to know. She has to know how you feel. Otherwise, she's just going to think she can say anything at all, and nobody ever gets hurt.
Marion is not a good parent, nor can communicate very well with Lady Bird because they both are unsure of one another. They see each other through this warped lens of mother and daughter instead of just two human beings. And of course, the reason why Marion can't let Lady Bird go is because she's afraid of losing her like any parent, but has like an irrational fear of losing her. And not only that, but because Marion has wrapped up so much of her identity in this being that she cannot fathom losing her. When it's revealed that Lady Bird has applied to East Coast schools and is actually going to one, Marion completely shuts down. She basically acts as though Lady Bird is dead to her, which is extremely immature and annoying behavior. But again, it's realistic. Many parents are not mature enough to handle the fact that their child is an independent human being separate from them that has their own inspirations, own interests, and, own life. The best version of Lady Bird to Marion is probably a child that just sits down and shuts up and obeys and has all the same interests and disinterests as her. But if you think that your kid is going to be exactly like you or never have a mind of their own, I have a big surprise for you. Your kid doesn't exist to please you, to fulfill your emotional needs, nor exist to give you a purpose in life. Your child will not complete you, and you need to have other interests besides your child because if you don't, your child will consume you, and you will not be able to handle the fact that they are going to, leave you eventually. Just like how Marion reacts by pretending that Lady Bird is dead when she tells her that she's going to the East Coast. A lot of parents don't realize this, and we get relationships like we see in Lady Bird, where both parties think badly of the other because of these false expectations society gives us of motherhood or parenthood in general. By the end of the film, Marion regrets her actions and does try to make things right, but she's too late. And in the end, it's Lady Bird that has to go make the call and do the work, and that's not right. Marion never apologizes for being so controlling, for belittling her daughter's intelligence, for criticizing her friends, nothing. I personally really dislike the ending of the movie, but it is realistic and I get why it ended that way. To suggest another movie, I prefer Bad Moms 2 because in that movie the mom actually has to apologize and realize that she's messed up. And I think that's something that's really rare that we don't see a lot in these kind of parent-child movies. Most movies do end with this message of filial piety, respect your parents, forgive them, when the message should really be, parents should grow and evolve with their children rather than staying set in their ways and being stubborn and, being like, this is my house, so sit down and shut up. So part 3, shared themes. So now let's put the films in conversation with one another. The first theme I want to bring up is one that I already talked about when talking about Fences, and that is intergenerational trauma. In Lady Bird, we learned that Marion's mother was an abusive alcoholic.
My mother was an abusive alcoholic.
That's the only time she talks about her mother, but we can probably guess that she wasn't an easy person to live with. We see that Marion was able to break the cycle that her mother started. She's not physically abusive, at least, though she's emotionally abusive, but she is a responsible adult. She takes care of the household. She's the only working parent since her husband has depression and got fired. And she even opens their home to a girl who was kicked out of her home, which is Lady Bird's brother's girlfriend. So we can see that she's actually, she's a decent person.
She has a big heart, your mom.
But Marion, like most parents, isn't very self-reflective. She doesn't understand how her overbearingness is affecting her child, about how her controlling nature is affecting her child, and she doesn't really see things that she's doing wrong or things that she could be doing better. In the end, Marion is totally inflexible. For example, Lady Bird uses 2 towels for her shower, and because it's laundry day and Marion didn't know that she used 2 towels, she says that Lady Bird just ruined her whole laundry schedule, and it's something so benign, but it drives Marion up the wall. She doesn't even let Lady Bird make her own breakfast because she's just going to F it up anyway. And there's a scene where Marion wants Lady Bird to clean her room this instant, when doing it tomorrow morning would be just as fine. And Troy's the same type of way with Corey. His chores must be done now. It's like always now or never with these types of parents, when 30 minutes or even a few hours won't make much of a difference. But parents who do have these sorts of time ticks of things needing to be done now or never, usually have something that they're going through that they should be working out in therapy, but instead they take it out on their child. Either because, like Marion and Troy, they don't want their children to turn into delinquents like their parents were, or because they want to exert their parental control, and sometimes both. Making your kid do something now is literally just a show of parental power, unless it's something that needs to be done actually now. But if it can be done 30 minutes from now or an hour from now, and you just tell your kid once, they'll probably be sure to do it and remember to do it. You just need to trust them. But by constantly enforcing that you have to do this now or I'm going to lose my shit and rage about it for days, will only give your child anxiety about chores and doing chores, and also about you. They're going to end up like Troy, being afraid to talk to you about things or bring things up because they know that you explode at the littlest thing. Kids shouldn't have to fear their parents. They shouldn't seize up inside when they hear your footsteps. But so many kids do feel this way because their parents walk around like ticking time bombs. Rather than parents being reflective and maybe realizing that the chore can wait, or maybe that they're traumatizing their child by being so needlessly demanding, most parents will chalk their kids' unwillingness to do chores to laziness or stupidity, which is extremely toxic. I cannot stress this enough. If your kid feels uncomfortable around you, it's your fault. Parents mess up. That's fine. That's normal. That's natural. Parents aren't perfect. There's not one single parent in the world that is perfect. But because parents are not perfect, you need to do the work, and you need to be able to be self-aware enough to realize that you might have a lot of mental work to do, and you need to be conscious as to why that is. Doing self-work and opening yourself up and being vulnerable and realizing that you can make mistakes and that you need to own up to those mistakes will only better your relationship with your child. The worst thing you can do is blame them. Blame them, their friends, say your brother doesn't feel that way, because newsflash, kids are not a monolith. I'm not saying that kids know everything or that kids are perfect angels all the time. They obviously are not, and they need to be guided and educated properly. But if you're just going to berate them until they do something now because you don't think that they're capable enough to do it later, or you don't trust them enough to do it later, and you just think that they're, incapable of doing things that you tell them to, then you are setting yourself up for failure. So the next theme I want to talk about is age and guilt. Marion and Troy both dismiss their children because they're younger, and as older people, they know better. Firstly, being older doesn't mean you have more life experience, nor that you know better or are more mature, because as we see in both Fences and Lady Bird, the parents in the movies are very socially inept and emotionally stunted. They don't know how to communicate, probably because of their abusive upbringings, but they don't really try to work on that either, or are self-reflective enough, or self-aware enough or self-conscious enough to realize that they're doing the same thing to their kids or that they're hurting their kids because of this. And of course, it's not all on them. They have really tough jobs. Troy's a sanitation worker and Marion is a nurse, so it's really hard for them to find the time to, be self-reflective and be better parents. But if they really wanted to be better parents, they should have made the time to listen to their kids. But of course they don't, because that would mean admitting that they've made mistakes, and they're definitely not going to do that. So instead they chalk it up to age as to why they don't get along. So many times you hear parents say, oh, you'll get it when you're older, or I can't wait till you're older, and it's like, and of course parents say this because they think that with age, time will harden their child and they will be just like them. But in reality, we see that with time, Corey actually diverges a lot from his father, and becomes a better person than his father could ever be, because he's conscious and aware of the abuse he faced and is sure not to repeat the cycle. So now let's talk about guilt. Both Troy and Marion make their children feel guilty about pursuing, their life outside of their family, and also, by bettering themselves through education. And Rose in Fences, of course, makes Corey feel guilty about not wanting to attend his father's funeral, when, again, that's not her choice to make. Parents should never make their kids feel guilty for existing or for wanting their independence, but so many parents can't handle the fact that their child is growing up that instead they decide to smother them. They do it under the guise of, I know better because I'm older, and also make you feel guilty by saying, why do you hate me? Why do you hate your family? Why do you want to leave me? When you just want to have your own life because you're growing up and you're a human being, and that's fine. I think one of the biggest reasons why parents and children don't have good relationships is because parents usually, just don't respect younger people. They see younger people as immature, lazy, stupid, and if you have that view of young people, you probably shouldn't be a parent. You need to be able to grow and change and evolve with your child in the stages that they're at. And if you're not able to see young people as capable human beings, then you will just be a bad parent. And you definitely shouldn't expect your child to just automatically respect you because you're older than them and you say that you know more, because they probably will not go along with that. And you also need to be doing more than the bare minimum. Just because you go above and beyond on certain days of the year doesn't mean that, the other 360 days of the year don't matter. If you're still disrespecting your child, not, giving them the space they need, or, giving them your trust, it's all for naught. Because the other 360 days of the year is what they're going to remember. They're not going to remember the big public displays of affection that you did for them, but rather how you reacted when you told them you wanted to go to school on the other side of the country, or when you told them that you wanted to start learning how to drive, or when you had to call them to pick you up from a friend's house. That's what they're going to remember, and you need to be able to react accordingly and be sure not to lash out on those, other days of the year when it's not their birthday or it's not Christmas, because that's what matters. Did you yell at them? Did you try to make them feel guilty? Did you try to dissuade them? Did you tell them that they didn't know any better because you're older and therefore wiser? Or did you let them feel heard? Did you put on that brave face that parents have to put on? Did you make your kid feel valued? And that's what really matters. We know what bad parents look like. Just look at Troy and Marion. But what does good parenting look like? When I think of a movie that actually has good child and parent lessons in it, I think of the Freaky Friday remake from the early 2000s, because in that movie, they show that it takes two to tango. The child needs to learn, but also the parent needs to learn, and they're able to reconcile because they learn to both respect each other as human beings rather than as mother and daughter. Now let's talk about gratitude and privacy. Your kid will not be grateful for everything you do, and you need to be okay with that. There's one scene in Lady Bird where Lady Bird throws away her lunch that her mom made for her in favor of a lunch that her friend's boyfriend makes. And it's assumed that she throws away the lunch that her mom makes for her every single day. And, I think that that's a bad thing. I don't think that kids should be throwing away their lunch. But she's also not comfortable enough to tell her mom that she doesn't want to eat the food that she makes her because she knows that her mom will probably explode at her. So instead, Lady Bird just doesn't tell her, throws the lunch away every day, and eats another lunch instead because she knows that that's the path of least resistance. And in the end, you have to kind of understand that. Also, kids did not ask to be brought into this world. We exist simply because you willed it into existence, and we're here now. So you need to be able to deal with that, And it's more, again, than just doing the bare minimum, more than just feeding, clothing, and housing your child. But it's also about giving them respect, seeing them as people every single day. And it's important to note that treating your kid with respect doesn't mean that they're going to suddenly tell you everything or that you're going to be best friends, but rather that they should still get privacy and that you also need to be okay with that. And you shouldn't be nice and respectful to your child just because you think that they're going to tell you everything, because then you're still not actually respecting them. Kids deserve privacy. Everyone deserves privacy, and your kid is no different. If you're a type of parent that tries to hack into your child's phone or read their diary, you're doing it wrong. Let your kid have space. And it's not easy, I'm not here to say that it's easy, and these are really hard words to live by, but you need to give your kids space, you need to give them privacy, otherwise they for sure will never come to you with anything. And being selfless and unconditionally loving and trusting of your child is not easy, but parenting is not easy, and you need to put on that brave face and get through it, because if you don't, your kid will be the one to suffer. So the next theme I want to talk about is wrapping yourself up too much in your child that you lose yourself. In both films, we can see that the parents have very little outside of their family and outside of their children. Both of these parents have no outlet to release the anger they feel at life or at, individuals, and that's a problem. And it's really sad for Troy because the one thing that he was good at, he's not good at anymore. Marion, on the other hand, has nothing outside of her job, which is of course really hard and time consuming. And, she has a good relationship with her husband, but that's still not, what she really focuses her time in. She really just puts everything into this one child, and it kind of destroys her. I understand that as parents, you need to wrap yourself up in your kid's life, but as they get older, especially as both of their children are 18, they need to not be as involved, and they need to learn to step away. I promise you, the kids are all right. You need to get your own hobby outside of your kid. I don't know what it is or what it's going to be, but you need to think bigger. Your child will not be with you forever, and you need to be able to invest in other interests. So when your child does eventually leave, you don't break down. And it's not easy, again, especially, with all the dangers in the world. Of course, it's, normal to have a healthy feeling of anxiety around your child when they leave, even just to go to a friend's house. That's normal, to worry about them. But if it becomes unhealthy, if it becomes all you think about, if it becomes an obsessive thought, then you need to seek help. So yeah, if you don't take anything else away from this video, it is to get a hobby outside of your children, because they will not be with you forever. And, you need something to release stress, release anger, something that brings you joy, something that makes you feel independent, because it's so easy to lose yourself in the life of your child that, having that hobby there will really help when coping with parenting as a whole. So let's move on to the next theme. You don't need to forgive your parents. So there was a viral tweet that went around last year that was like, I don't know who needs to hear this, but forgive your parents. And it's like, if you can't forgive your parents, that's okay. If you need to cut them off from your life for whatever reason, that's valid and that's fine. And if you still have a relationship with your parents, but it's strained, but you come to the decision that you still want them in your life, that's valid too. Everyone has different relationships with their parents, and no one should be telling anyone that you need to forgive them. It's okay to have messy feelings about your parents, to love and hate them simultaneously. I mean, Corey does. We see that he's sad that his dad is dead because, of course, he loves him, but he also hates him for what he did to him, and that's fine. We live in this world where it's either or, And sometimes it is either or, but sometimes it's somewhere in the middle, and we need to realize that and know that that's okay. So the second to last point I want to make is about labels. The labels we put on, family dynamics or family roles such as mom, dad, daughter, son, they carry a lot of weight to them. Like in the speech that Troy gives to Corey when he calls him, you're my son.
You are my son.
That just carries so much weight with it, and so much societal expectation that it's a really heavy term that a lot of people tend to internalize. We see that with Rose. Her being a wife is something that she's internalized so much that she needs to be, society's version of a perfect wife, that she doesn't even really know who she is anymore.
Then wherever you was going, I was going to be there with you because you was my husband. Because that's the only way I was going to survive as your wife.
And this kind of internalization, obviously, is dangerous because you start to see people not as people, but as what their label dictates, which gives you false expectations of the other person. And sometimes of yourself, like Rose, for example. Or if you're a child, this kind of internalization of being a daughter or son either makes you revere your parents because they're your parents and they have these very strong labels of mom and dad, or it makes you not want to be like them because they're not living up to your expectations and you can never live up to theirs. The best thing we can do with these labels is to, just see them as words rather than all of these things that society puts on them. You're the people that take care of you. Yes, they're your mom and your dad, but, that doesn't mean anything. It just means that they are someone who's taking care of you, who identifies either as a man or a woman, and that's it, really, and you're a child, and that just means that you're being taken care of or that you're, legally under 18 or whatever. And, we just cannot put this much weight into these labels because it really tears people apart. So the last thing I want to talk about is kids not wanting to be like their parents. And kids not wanting to be like their parents usually stems from the fact that they have a bad relationship with them. Simple as that. And usually kids that do want to be like their parents usually had a positive relationship with their parents. And this good relationship with your parents seems to depend on so much, but it really just depends on just a few things: kindness, respect, and love. I think the best praise for any parent is when their child says that they want to be like them. Because, you cannot be doing any better than that if your kid says that you want to be like them. That's just it. But unfortunately, so many kids do not want to end up like their parents. They usually go in the total opposite direction because they have bad relationships with them, because those three little things are not there. The respect isn't there, the kindness isn't there, the love isn't there, and those little daily affirmations, those little things like I'm here for you or it's okay, just, again, they're not there, they're absent. And that matters, Every single day, your kid should know that you're there for them. And a lot of kids don't get that. Instead, kids like Corey and Lady Bird are afraid to tell their parents things because they're unpredictable, because, they've reacted so badly in the past to other little things. How are they going to react to this? So they keep things to themselves, and in turn, resentment grows, secrets are, discovered, and it's all goes to shit. But that doesn't mean that they have a bad relationship, 100% bad. But, it is something that makes them not want to be like their parents. And, that's also not very good either. But again, not saying that because you want to be like your parents means that they're the best parents ever either. But it is definitely a huge compliment. So my final thoughts. So if you haven't seen Fences or Lady Bird, I highly suggest that you watch them and check them out. Fences is definitely a longer one to sit through, but it is emotionally rewarding, and there's some just great writing in the movie, so go check it out. Lady Bird is a lot shorter. It's only like 90 minutes, but it packs a punch. And yeah, so go check them out, and I hope you enjoyed this video about parent-child relationships and how, people can be better parents. I gave a lot of advice in this video, so hopefully, take it to heart. And yeah, that's it. I just wanted to say that I'm not a parent, so I only know half the story, but, I think that as kids, we should have a say in how our parents parent. So, just throwing this out here. These are just my observations, my opinions, my thoughts. So please subscribe and ring the bell to be notified every time I post a new video. And please, 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 if you like this video, give it a like, leave a comment, do both so the video gets boosted. So yeah, thank you so much, and I'll see you all in the next one.